Craig Blount, Fifth Line Capital. We're helping companies, raise debt in one way, shape, or form or another. I like to think of us as the good guys, and as we go out and prosper, we meet folks that may need our assistance. We come across a lot of different interesting people, like our guest today, Imran Syed, who's the CEO, founder of Hatchproof. There's a lot of different elements that go into starting companies, raising equity, raising capital, raising debt. And so, Imran, I think, we have a pretty interesting 20-30 minutes of content set up here that is, kind of covers a couple interesting things that are happening in the market, and then a couple, key considerations that folks might have when they're starting businesses. So, Imran, with that, CEO, founder of Hatchproof, revolutionizing, kind of the future of work, recruiting, telemanagement, and the like. Want to give a little intro on yourself and Hatchproof?
Yeah, thanks so much, Greg, and thanks for flying for having me. Excited to be here. I'm the founder and CEO of Hatchproof. Um, if I were to kind of describe Hatchproof in a couple of sentences, um, it would be, rethinking the way we're connecting people inside organizations to improve the retention challenge. Our vision is to really help you do what you love longer out there in the marketplace. Prior to Hatchproof, I was the CEO of Instapage. I successfully exited that company in Q4 of 2023. At Instapage, I served as the COO as well and SVP of Professional Services and HR. Before that, I was a regional vice president at Oracle Marketing Cloud, where we served Fortune 1000 brands across the marketing stack. So portfolios like Responses, Eloqua, Blue Kai, etc. So it was a great opportunity. And before that, I was in consulting. I'm both Canadian and American, based in the Bay Area here as well. So yeah, excited to be here and thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. So Imran and I met when he's the CEO of Instapage, and I was a banker at the time, and Imran was going through the process of selling a business, which is always intriguing on both sides of the fence. Less work on the banker front, but certainly we get a window into the process. And so I guess first of all, Imran, what we're going to be talking about starting a company. What was it like selling your first company?
Yeah, a great question, Greg. I had always heard it's really difficult to build a company, but selling a company, especially in 2023, was one of the most challenging yet rewarding experiences I've ever had. And I had some experience early on with M&As and really in the professional consulting capacity, but doing it, at that scale, it took a lot. I think I've shared this with you personally. I was probably one of the most reluctant CEOs that you'll ever come across, where I was in the COO ship. Our CEO at the time ended up transitioning out of the business. And it was kind of like, hey, Imran, do you want to step up and do this? And you kind of had this like real gut wrenching moment, and you kind of look yourself in the mirror, and it's like, yeah, do I want to do this? And the biggest driver for me was we had an amazing team at Instapage, and I wanted to help them kind of transition to the next step. I believed really fully that the next step in that future was going to be brighter, being connected to a larger organization, and kind of bought into that vision. And so it made a lot of sense. And then, like the third big thing was like, where is the business in terms of like the investors, the board dynamics, and where were sort of the founders' head and vision at? And I think all signs kind of pointed to, hey, a transition makes a lot of sense here, and getting it over the finish line. But 12, 14-hour days for the last 6 months, and at the same time balancing morale, because unfortunately it kind of leaked out that we were going through this acquisition process, and there's quite a lot to balance there. But yeah, it's one of the most rewarding, and probably what's given me so much strength in terms of going out and starting my own thing, which again is not for the faint of heart. I think piece of advice I got was I was sharing the concept of Hatchproof with a friend of mine, Paul Mander, and um, he asked me, "Is this an itch or is this a burning desire?" And if it's an itch, leave it alone. If it's a burning desire, follow it. And it has been, and it has been for a really long time. Um, in my intro, I talked about taking over the HR team. That was back in 2021. If I think about everything that's happened in the HR landscape in the last 3 to 4 years, gosh, what a remarkable time to both be an employer and an employee. The demands on both sides have increased tremendously, right? And I
Sure.
think that post-pandemic world, we're questioning everything: why we work, where we work, when we work, how we work, what we work on. And I knew if I built something, it'd have to be in this space. Taking everything I know from MarTech, AdTech, my experience in HR, the general management, and the people side of what's so rewarding to me, and bring it into what I do next. And so that's my foray into Hatchproof, and why I'm so passionate about it, because I think there's massive potential there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the burning desire to become CEO, I'm gonna kind of put you on the spot. How much of that desire was kind of put on you for the like looking over your shoulder and realizing that there's no one else there? It's like, okay, well, I kind of being voluntold. I don't know. So
It's interesting because like I every year I ask myself, am I in the right job? And am I the right person to do this? And when I look back at that, we could have hired an external CEO and sort of brought in, but when you're already in down this path of, here's where we're going, it made a lot of sense to have security with the team and bring in somebody who's seasoned, who understands the business and can help kind of get it over the finish line. And
yeah,
I feel very blessed that I had the opportunity to do it.
yeah,
But it's people are like, "Hey, how'd you become the CEO?" And it wasn't like, "Hey, I had this master plan to go and do that." In less than 3 years, going from entering as a VP and leaving as a CEO, and exiting a company, it was a fairy tale. And fairy tales have a lot of great learning opportunities in them as well.
yeah, 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 including the the mid bits that are a little aggressive. Yeah, you definitely. I mean, I saw you definitely dropped into a war zone that you cleaned out. So kudos there. If good job. If so you're starting Hatchproof. How much of kind of the last gig becoming CEO influenced your gumption, desire, and temerity, and deciding to strike on your own? If you'd stayed CEO and saw that through, laudable title. But if you'd stayed there, do you think you'd be in the same place? Or
Well, we did the tough stuff, and we turned the company around, as you know all too well, right? We brought it to EBITDA positivity, and I felt like it was in a good place to sustain and grow. I think as an individual, I'm an innovator. I enjoy the challenge. I'm not really the best maintainer, and I felt like that space and that opportunity. There was a lot of maintaining the good that we had built on.
yeah,
Um, Absolutely. I think everything is a building block. I got a chance to work with a phenomenal founder in Tyson Quick, and he's everything you imagine in the Valley in terms of he's got that big, bold vision, and with that sort of comes the challenges of making that real, even at a common level. And so it did influence like my decision to kind of go into it. Um, I feel so passionately and almost obsess over this problem, which allows me sort of the gumption to say, "Hey, I'm going to go out and do this and make it happen." But yeah, I think everything is sort of a stepping stone into where I am today.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. Kind of getting in a position where you're really kind of overviewing, standing over and influencing and needing, kind of the HR component, recruiting component to, work in lockstep to help, sell the enterprise. Hatchproof, it's great concept, love to death. What do you think is in store, for kind of recruiting in general, right? There's a lot of kind of interesting factors going on. The next generation's coming in. There's work from home, work in office. The ever continuing struggle. right now, there's a lot of layoffs happening, but that means that retention and, keeping folks happy and improving efficiency of folks is all that, much more important. Yeah, just curious in general on the free
Yeah,
market.
it has. It's been, a sort of a whirlwind, right? We went from the 2021, 2022 talent wars and great resignation, and you couldn't find talent and retain them. And then, they're kind of dubbing 2024 as like the great stay, which is, you know, for a lot of analysts and myself, it's more a symptom of, um, just uncertainty, right, out there in the marketplace, and folks are kind of hunkering down and kind of hanging on to what they want. But we see what sort of a free market looks like, and there's a lot of movement. You kind of touched on the generational piece. It's super interesting that by the end of next year, the Gen Zs will surpass the boomers in terms of representation in the U.S. Workplace. And why that's so significant is you've got the folks that, on average, stay at companies for 8.4 years, leaving the market, and you have the folks that have the shortest tenure, about a year and 8 months, entering the market and expanding, right, their footprint into it. Millennials are kind of in the middle at 4.9 years, and I think that's going to create a lot of movement. It's again one of these reasons why I think the timing is so right with Hatchproof, because this product more in the future, but we're already seeing the signs of its impact today. Right? We look at cost, and it's staggering. Right? It costs about 33% of an employee's salary to actually replace them and to find it. You've got 30% of the workforce not even making it past the first 90 days. And I think that year point, it's about 38% that don't make it past that. So something isn't working. And that's why, I kind of got obsessed with this. How did this all start? Where do we kind of enter into this world from? And it kind of comes from this concept of Taylorism. And we really structured the resume, the job analysis, and job boards to like, I need these skills. Do you have these skills? And it was sort of like this matching algorithm. Took off during the industrial age, and we were hiring at mass scale. It made a lot of sense. It made a lot of sense in sort of repeatable job processes, etc. We got some efficiencies along the way. You notice applicant tracking systems, ATS systems came in. They allowed us to take like large volumes and make sense of them, and then we introduced little things like keyword tracking, and then we got a little smarter and put it on our resume so we'd show up to recruiters. But we never really challenged, like, is this the right way to get hired? And I don't know about you, Greg, but like mentors and great bosses have made such a big difference in my life. And the status still holds true today. I think about 79 to 80% of folks will leave an organization if that fit isn't correct. And so at Hatchproof, we're really focused on finding that fit first. And I know that that's what leads to really strong retention. And we've got the science and data to sort of prove that. So yeah, I think so much is happening. Talent wars are coming. I think AI is going to like, it's already, reshaping the marketplace, but there's going to be so many new jobs that are going to get created. We've seen it with every sort of technology boom, and talent wars are coming. And, I think hanging on to talent is going to become increasingly important in this whole AI plus human era for
Yeah,
employers.
yeah, and a lot of points in there that run through, especially kind of what you're doing, who you're working for, especially for I feel like with the youngest generation coming in, I feel like everyone gets to that point in time in their career where they realize that, it's kind of about who you're working for, who's driving the ship, who's making you want to work and who's making life easy for you. But yeah, that's very, very interesting. As you go down this journey to create this company, right, and address this need in the market, which is all pervasive. It's a big one. I mean, right now you're a sole founder, right? Um, how are you? How did you think about kind of starting this company on your own versus having a co-captain, and not just in kind of sharing workload, but from from a control, longevity, board perspective. I mean, that's something I don't hear people talk about very often. I'm curious.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really interesting question. Um, I think you got to start off with what is the role that you're going to serve as a CEO, and what are your strengths, and what role would a co-founder play within that environment? For me, coming from a successful exit, coming from a career that has a ton of experience in terms of the tech and SaaS world, I felt very comfortable going out there and leading a business, leading around and sort of building, because I have managed every aspect inside an organization. Um, co-founders don't necessarily have to be a day one type decision. I think that's one of the things that folks always lose sight of. You think that that person has to be there in the first step, and that's not necessarily true. You can find them along the journey, and I've just been kind of like very open to kind of approaching it that way. And for me, it's more about the right fit versus like forcing something, because I saw a stat that showed like the average startup has like 2 to 3 co-founders, right, or something like that. Not everything kind of fits the mold. The whole idea of a startup doesn't really fit the mold, and nothing I do sometimes tends to fit the mold from that capacity. But surround yourself with great team members, and try to attract the right people. And I think a co-founder is a different level of responsibility. It's a different level of commitment. um, I would work for free at Hatchproof, and it's just I would do anything to help it succeed, because I believe in the mission. And I think I would be looking for somebody who would match that energy level. And that's a tremendous amount of pressure on somebody, right? Especially when this is an idea that I'm sort of bringing forward and sort of building. But yeah, who's to say? Who's to say in the future of what that would look like?
Yeah, yeah, hard to get. I can see how it'd be hard to find someone after the fact to come in and join. But you talk about pressure on someone coming in as a co-founder. Solo. Most people have that 2 or 3 just because they want to be able to sleep at night sometimes, and buy their kids awesome t-shirts inside joke. Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting, and one that will continue to unfold. As you raise around, so we'd have you back on to see how things change, if they change, right? Because
Yeah, yeah, I'd love that.
I certainly sit in the camp of it being optional, right? Yeah, if you surround, when did you hire your first first members of the team? Was that week one, 2, 3? When did you decide that you're gonna share the love?
You know, um, there's a really great book called The Mom Test, and another founder had actually recommended it to me. And I think when you come up with an idea, there's a lot of great ideas there, and your natural instinct is like, let's go talk to everybody about this. And look, this is so great. This is going to change the world, and get all fired up about it. And in the Mom Test, it really talks about holding that back, um, and actually understanding the market and market conditions a lot. And I spent a lot of my time. I think I took a week off after exiting Instapage, and said, "Hey, what am I going to do?" And I looked at a couple of opportunities that came in inbound, and to work for other organizations, and I just couldn't shake this notion of going out there and doing it alone. Um, and in the mom test, it just really emphasizes just go learn the market and ask a lot of questions. And that's the first thing I did, Greg. Like I connected with other, HR professionals, and asked them about their pains, asked them about what tool sets they use to address that. And, once I got really crystallized on the problem, I started thinking about what can I do on my own. um, and I usually use like, do I build it? Do I partner? Do I, kind of connect with somebody? And I think it was Instagram that first disrupted the world. I think they might have been like 14, 15 people when they hit $1 billion valuation. And it was one of the smallest team sizes. And this notion that to be a large company, you need a large footprint, I think that doesn't exist anymore. And you can do a lot with very little resources.
Sure.
So a lot of it was, just driving forward on my own with an idea. I have a brilliant behavioral scientist that was, quote unquote, team member number one, and he and I kind of worked on validating some of my ideas on what makes a great fit. And there's been assessments around for about 50 years, disc assessments, Myers-Briggs, etc. I found a lot of them to be very useful, but time consuming, static, and our relationships aren't that way, right? If we think about our personal and professional relationships, they're very fluid. And I wanted something like that that helped you sort of connect with a manager, helped you connect with a team, helped you connect with an organization. So yeah, that was hire number one. And again, what I evaluated was where I needed the most support, and that was validating the science, and bringing that piece in. Hire number two, three was really let's go build. And what do I need to go and build that? And it was really in the engineering scope of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you on the test. I and think about the disc assessment. I took 4 fifth line that said I was terrible with people.
Ah, really?
I don't see
So
it. It might
you're
just
like
be
host the
that's
podcast.
I promise you that would be. But yeah, no, I think it's really interesting. And one of the things that stuck out with me was the mom test. I mean, I think if there was a mom test, I'd definitely be a dad because I think of the million times I've gone on and like I have this crazy idea. But I think it's having the gumption to go out and and to hold it in and go out and test yourself. And yeah, I mean, it's good food for thought for people who are thinking about starting a business. And do you have the passion and not necessarily be a sole founder, but do you have the passion to do that very initial work on your own and explore on your own and really kind of have enough passion to self-validate, right? I think that is it's a big, yeah, it seems like a differentiator. At least in all my ideas, I've wanted to, someone to join me. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's extremely tough to be self-critical.
Yeah.
And I think um, it was very necessary for me of almost tearing this thing down. Um, and as I did that, I just kept coming back to there's something here, right? There's something definitely here. And I wholeheartedly believe there's a lot of great tools in the HR tech stack out there. I think there's going to be a lot of consolidation in the market in the future. I think HR professionals want to have that seat at the table and want to be strategic, and how can you help them and empower them to do that? And so everything kind of made sense. And then just Greg, like personally, like I think when you sell a company, um, you go through a lot of emotions, right? There's loss that's there. I worked around the clock for the success of that organization, and um, I too needed to heal from that. And I think that being in that headspace and kind of moving on from that allowed me that time to my recovery was in my work. And most people take a vacation and enjoy a beach or something like that, but my recovery kind of came into taking this idea and really validating it. And here we are, and we've really gone from idea to MVP in almost less than 6 months, which is shows you how fast you can actually build in this environment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. How fascinating. It's kind of touching on that passion. That's when you told me that you were making Hatchproof, I mean, for me, it was just helping you out here, there, raise some equity. It was just a no-brainer to, try to join the cause and help just because, you match the cause, right? You embody, the mission statement, the ideals that you're trying to, put forth with Hatchproof. And that, I mean, kind of speaking to the vision, and kind of workplaces, going forward. And everyone who thinks that this is completely unscripted, I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Everyone wanted me to ask about Maslow's self-actualization, and I don't know what that is. So if anyone else doesn't know what that is, then you're kindred spirit. But Imran, I would love for you to touch on Maslow's self-actualization. Let us know what it is. I have a couple of notes here, but what is it, and how do you think about it?
Yeah, great question, Greg. I was putting together a slide for the investor deck, and the question I was asking was like, why now, right? Like, why does Hatchproof matter now? And there's really three areas that it touches on. It's this post-pandemic reality, which we talked about a little bit. I think the AI plus human era, this macro environment that we're seeing, is really taking off. And the last one is like self-expansion, which in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's kind of self-actualization, and above that, you've got this concept of transcendence, and it's really a scale of like basic human needs, and kind of flows from like the baseline, at the entry point, and the top is that transcendence and self-actualization. And if you think about developed worlds, like and sort of the cohort of people that we're seeing in work today, they are asking questions of like fulfillment. Why am I doing what I'm doing? And we want to feel fulfillment in everything that we do, whether that's our personal lives or our professional lives. And this is why I think self-expansion is such an important driver, because we have options, right? We have options on where we work. I think employers have options on where they find talent, as well. And so we are, I don't want to say our generation is a lot more, you know, um, selective on what they do, but I think we have the luxury of being that way. And so work has to be meaningful. And there's a lot of pressure in making work meaningful, right? And I think that goes both ways. Like, I think both parties are really responsible for that, right? Like in terms of what you bring into a job and how an employer structures that. I think as Hatchproof kind of solves this like retention problem and keeping folks there, one of the big areas we focus on is onboard. Our onboarding is actually very different because it kind of connects into our behavioral world, and helps you kind of get set up for success, but then takes it further in terms of where you grow as an individual inside that organization. All of that is to tap into self-expansion, right? Like to provide meaning in work. When you have meaning in your work, like the hours, the weeks, the months, they just kind of fade away, and you're really tied to the purpose of it. And there's a variety of factors that kind of composite that.
Yeah, makes complete sense, and it's timely. I mean, you think about the advent of AI, or just basic principles of economics, right? Every item, thing that you consume, there's diminishing margin of return. Your utilities begin to fall, and as things become cheaper across the board, then the consumption of items and consumerism, for buying things, it comes cheaper. But the advent of AI, there'll be a lot of jobs created from that, but there's so much work that AI can do, on people's behalves, especially once it starts proliferating and is really, becomes ingrained that, the value that's derived from that will, should only serve to, reduce the cost of things, increase utilization. So there'll be a need for intangible, benefit from what folks are doing to, become more important. This is my eyes. I don't know if you agree with everything I just said, but
Yeah, yeah, no, I do. I don't know who said it and who to credit, but it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's the person who knows how to use it, right? And I think that's very true in this next era. We haven't gotten to true, fully functioning AI from the standpoint where everything is being orchestrated through it, right? It is human plus AI driving it. It's a tool in the toolbox, and I think that it would be a mistake not to leverage that tool, right? And we've seen it at different inflection points with almost all technology, right? Like there's adoption curves. The difference is that our, kind of the adaptive age that we're in, we're just moving so much faster in bringing on these tools and being able to use it. So I am so excited about what work looks like in the next 12 months, and gosh, even in the next 6 months and beyond that, because it's just changing so rapidly.
Yeah.
Um, right.
Yeah. I completely agree. And, I think, having people happy and feel satisfied with work has always been something that's been very near and dear to my heart. So I, get the vision. I think it's the right time. I think you've, had a lot of prior great success, and this one's going to be, another one as you go forth and prosper. Yeah, it's good
Yeah,
stuff.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Greg. I appreciate the time, and to the Fifth Line team, thank you for having me, and love to stay in touch and keep you abreast of how we evolve and grow.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Do you want to do the recorded version now, or?
Yeah, you didn't hit the record button. Fantastic.
No, my bad. No, no.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think this will be a very, valuable addition to the Friends of Fifth Line series, and yeah, go forth, prosper. Congrats on the success so far, and look forward to re-engaging, see how things have gone.
Thanks so much, Greg. Appreciate it.
So.